We wanted to do glycolysis to produce energy, but what did we get? We did glycolysis to just get pyruvate. Did God cheat us giving us pyruvate? We didn't get the energy that we wanted. So, what does the body do to turn this pyruvate to get energy? That is what we will be seeing in today's video. We will see what is the metabolic rate of pyruvate. So, glycolysis, at the end of glycolysis you will be getting pyruvate, but pyruvate, there is an enzyme complex that is called as the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. This is the complex that will deal with this metabolism of the pyruvate. This is actually and this actually catalyzes oxidative decarboxylation. Oxidative decarboxylation. By the term itself, we try to understand that there is two events that is happening: oxidation along with decarboxylation. This is actually a multi-enzyme complex. The multi-enzyme complex, by that I mean that it is not actually just one enzyme. It is composed of 3 apoenzymes and 5 coenzymes. These coenzymes are actually derived mainly from vitamin B complexes. Example: thiamine pyrophosphate and NAD plus, FAD, coenzyme A, and lipoamide. TPP is actually vitamin B1, NAD is vitamin B3, FAD is vitamin B2, and coenzyme A is vitamin B5. So, and also the 3 apoenzymes we will be seeing it in the step by step. So, our initial substrate is pyruvate. What happens to pyruvate? Pyruvate will be oxidatively decarboxylated by the enzyme called as the pyruvate dehydrogenase. The enzyme is called as pyruvate dehydrogenase, and this step will require TPP as the coenzyme. So pyruvate, at the end of this process, with the removal of carbon dioxide, that is why it is called as oxidative decarboxylation. The pyruvate is actually a 3 carbon compound. With removal of 1 carbon, it will give out a 2 carbon compound with TPP attached to it. The product is called as the hydroxy ethyl thiamine pyrophosphate. Now, this hydroxythiamine pyrophosphate has to be converted to something else. This is catalyzed by dihydrolipoyl transacetylase. This will convert hydroxyethyl thiamine pyrophosphate to a compound that is called as the acetyl lipoamide. Lipoamide, and this will require the lipoamide as the coenzyme. When lipoamide is getting in, there is also a release of thiamine pyrophosphate. So the thiamine pyrophosphate that is attached at the end of the hydroxyethyl is now released to form the acetyl lipoamide. So what is the next step? The next step is that acetyl lipoamide will be converted to acetyl CoA with successive release of lipoamide and entry of coenzyme A. So with entry of coenzyme A and successive release of the lipoamide, which is catalyzed by dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase. So we see the 3 enzymes that are here, the 3 apoenzymes. The first is pyruvate dehydrogenase, second is the dihydrolipoyl transacetyl, the third is dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase. With the 3 enzyme, pyruvate, which was the initial substrate, is now converted to acetyl CoA. So here there is requirement of TPP, lipoamide, and coenzyme A. So where does this NAD plus and FAD plus is getting used? So the lipoamide that is produced here is actually in the reduced state, but the lipoamide that is used here is in the oxidized state. So for the successive reaction to take place, this reduced has to be converted to oxidized. So the reduced lipoamide is converted to oxidized form with the use of FAD. So the FAD will be converted to FADH2. This will get reduced to get it oxidized, and this FADH2 should be converted back for the next step. So that is where we use the next step, where NAD plus is getting reduced. For FADH2 to get oxidized, NAD plus is getting reduced. It is getting converted to NADH2. So now you will realize that NADH is a high energy compound. High energy compound. This will undergo the next step where of electron transport chain and will produce 2.5 ATP. So at the end of the process, we are getting acetyl-CoA and a molecule of NADH2 per pyruvate. So since in the end of glycolysis there is 2 pyruvate, the energy release is actually 2 into 2.5 ATP, because for per ATP pyruvate there is release of 2.5 ATP. So for the 2 pyruvate that is released, there it will produce actually 5 ATP molecules. So what next? How is it regulated? Pyruvate is finally getting converted to acetyl-CoA. How is it regulated? So this is example of allosteric mechanism and covalent modification. You can basically understand it like end or feedback regulation. So when there is an accumulation of products, the enzyme is getting stopped. When there is product increases, reaction is getting slowed down. So because the body doesn't want to accumulate the products inside the body, so when there is an increase in ATP, the increase in NADH2, increase in acetyl-CoA, all these will inhibit the enzyme. But when there is an increase in AMP, increase in calcium, increase in magnesium, so all that will get activate the enzyme. So calcium and magnesium, you can understand it like calcium when will be used? Muscle contraction. Muscle contraction, what will be produced? What will be used? ATP will be utilized. So the body will think like there is more ATP that is going to be synthesized. So calcium will be acting as a promoter. Also there is a thing that pyruvate dehydrogenase in its phosphorylated form is inactive. So whatever enzyme that causes the phosphorylation will inactivate it, but when it is dephosphorylated, it is activated. When it is dephosphorylated, it is active. So which enzyme does cause phosphorylation? PDH kinase. So any enzyme that has kinase at the end, it will be actually phosphorylating. But on the other hand, PDH phosphatase is the removal. Phosphate is getting removed. So PDH phosphatase will promote and PDH kinase will stop. So these are the regulations. And finally, what is the significance? Actually, the significance is that without the pyruvate getting converted to acetyl-CoA, there is no TCA cycle happening, because that for the TCA cycle acetyl-CoA is required, and also that it can be used in the fatty acid synthesis, because acetyl-CoA, apart from getting taking part in the TCA cycle, it can also undergo fatty acid synthesis. So in this way fatty acid synthesis can happen, but you have to understand that no glucose can be synthesized from fatty acid, because the PDH process is irreversible. Because the process is irreversible, only pyruvate can be converted to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA cannot be, pyruvate can be converted to acetyl-CoA, but the reverse reaction cannot happen. So pyruvate CoA, after it getting converted to acetyl-CoA, it gets committed. The committed I mean that it is specifically, it can only undergo the further reaction, it cannot turn back. So the end product inhibition we have seen, the significance we have seen, energetics we have seen, and all that, how the pyruvate is getting converted to acetyl-CoA with the release of NADH2 that can produce 2.5 ATP coupled to the 2 pyruvate coupled together will produce 5 ATP. And also we have an applied biochemistry. The applied is that arsenite is a compound that will inhibit any enzyme that has SH group in it. Similarly, the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex is also having this arsenite group in it. So arsenite will act as inhibitor, or you can say it as a poison. So when arsenite is added to the when arsenite is injected into the body, or it is taken up by the body, the reaction completely stops. So it is acting as an inhibitor. So That's all for this video, friends. Hope you would have understood. Bye.